Live to the White House, where President Trump is awarding the Medal of Honor, the highest U.S. award for gallantry, to the former Army medic James McLaughlin for rescuing and treating wounded American troops under fire in the Vietnam War. But the talk of Washington tonight is that the White House has confirmed that President Trump has fired new communications director Anthony Scaramucci only 10 days after he was appointed.
And worked 40 years at a piano factory. Jim's dad taught him a simple but powerful lesson. Never do anything halfway. Always do your best. Jim took that lesson very much to heart. He played for 4 varsity sports in high school and 3 in college. In August of 1968, Jim was drafted into the Army. Within 6 months, he was trained as a medic and arrived in Vietnam. Right away, Jim poured all of himself into his duties, treating the sick and the wounded. Before long, all his fellow soldiers called him Doc. On May 13th, 1969, less than 3 months after he arrived, Jim was one of 89 men in Charlie Company to embark on a mission to secure a transportation route near Nha Nguyen. As Jim and his men jumped out of the helicopter, it quickly became clear that they were surrounded by enemy troops. Within minutes, 2 choppers were shot down, and one of his men was badly wounded in the middle of an open field. Jim did not hesitate. He blazed through 100 meters of enemy fire to carry the wounded and the soldier to safety. But this was only the first of many heroic deeds Jim would perform over the next 48 hours. After tending to the first wounded soldier, Jim joined a mission to advance toward the enemy. And advance they did. Before long, they were ambushed. Again, he ran into danger to rescue his men. As he cared for 2 soldiers, shrapnel from a rocket-propelled grenade slashed open the back of Jim's body from head to foot. Yet that terrible wound didn't stop Jim from pulling those 2 men to safety, nor did it stop him from answering the plea of another wounded comrade and carrying him to safety atop his own badly injured body. He was badly injured. And so it went, shot after shot, blast upon blast. As one of his comrades recalled, whoever called medic could immediately count on McLuhan. He's a brave guy. As day turned to dusk, nearly all of those who could and really had to make it back, they were finally within their night defensive position, except for 1 soldier whose plea Jim could not ignore. Again, Doc did not hesitate. He crawled through a rice paddy thick with steel rain. That means bullets all over the place. As soldiers watched him, they were sure that was the last time they would see Doc. They thought that was the end of their friend Jim. But after several minutes passed, Jim emerged from the smoke and fire carrying yet another soldier. He immediately badgered and fixed and worked, but he got the wounds fixed and lifted the soldier to a medevac helicopter. His lieutenant ordered Jim to get in too. Get in, he said, get in. But Jim refused. He said, you're going to need me here. As Jim now says, I would have rather died on the battlefield than know that men died because they did not have a medic. Over the next 24 hours, Jim fired at enemy soldiers, suffered a bullet wound to his arm, and continued to race into gunfire to save more and more lives. And yet, as night approached again, after nearly 2 days of no food, no water, and no rest, Jim volunteered to hold a blinking light in an open field to signal for a supply drop. He would not yield, he would not rest, he would not stop, and he would not flinch in the face of sure death and definite danger. Though he was thousands of miles from home, it was as if the strength and pride of our whole nation was beating inside of Jim's heart. Jim did what his father had taught him. He gave it his all, and then he just kept giving. In those 48 hours, Jim rescued 10 American soldiers and tended to countless others. He was one of 32 men who fought until the end. They held their ground against more than 2,000 enemy troops. Jim, I know I speak for every person here when I say that we are in awe of your actions and your bravery. But let me tell you one thing and one more story about Jim. On the second day of that bloody fight, Jim found a few soldiers and a fellow soldier who had been shot badly in the stomach. He knew the soldier wouldn't make it if he flung him on the back, so he lifted him up and carried him in his arms. As Jim was carrying the soldier, a thought flashed through his mind. Although Jim had always been very close to his father, he realized that it was not since he had been a young boy that he had told his dad those three very simple but beautiful words, "I love you." In that moment, Jim offered up a prayer. He asked God, if you get me out of this hell on earth so I can tell my dad I love him, I'll be the best coach and the best father you could ever ask for. As he prayed, a great peace came over him. And if it was God's will for him to live, he'd keep his promise to God as soon as he had the chance. Jim made it out of that hell on earth. He made it. Here he is. And the first thing he did when he arrived back on American soil was to say those beautiful words, "I love you, Dad. I love you." Jim said those words over and over again for the next 22 years until the last time he saw his father, the night before his dad passed on. Today, I'd venture to say his dad is the proudest father in heaven. Jim fought with all of the love and courage in his soul. He was prepared to lay down his life so his brothers in arms could live theirs. With us today are 10 of the men who fought alongside Jim, and 5 of those he saved. To Bill, Randy, Mike, Joe, Kent, Robert, John, Charles, Michael, Orestes, thank you for your service and your sacrifice. Stand up wherever you may be. Where are you? Where are you? Thank you, fellas. That's great. For over 2 centuries, our brave men and women in uniform have overcome tyranny, fascism, communism, and every threat to our freedom. Every single threat they've overcome. And we've overcome these threats because of titans like Jim, whose spirit could never be conquered. That's what this award is, and Jim's life represents so well. America's unbreakable spirit. It's been 48 years since Jim's battle in Vietnam. He is now a husband, a father, and a grandfather. He coached high school, football, wrestling, and baseball for 38 years, just like he said he would. and he brought together every member he could find of his beloved Charlie Company. To many people in this room, Specialist 5 McCloughan has always been their friend Jim. To others, he's been coach. To those who bravely served with him in Vietnam, he's still called their doc. To his parents, Scotty and Margaret, both watching from heaven, he will always be their son. But today, 320 million grateful American hearts, Private McCloughan carries one immortal title, and that title is Hero. Specialist 5 McCloughan, we honor you, we salute you, and with God as your witness, we thank you for what you did for all of us. Now I would like the military aide to come forward and read the citation.
So President Donald Trump awarding the Medal of Honor, the highest US award for gallantry, to the former Army medic James McLaughlin there, that you can see standing next to President Trump. James McLaughlin rescued and treated wounded American troops while under fire in the Vietnam War.